being lopsided, that just flew all over me, because that could really happen.
The world of 1000 Delby Sisters has always thrived on raw emotion. Shocking revelations and the deeply personal struggles of two sisters who somehow became unlikely reality TV icons. From the very first time Tammy and Amy Slaton appeared on TLC, viewers were captivated by their dynamic two sisters fighting poverty, obesity, and their own personal demons, while also fighting each other in ways that were heartbreaking but impossible to ignore. It was a show about survival, about family, about resilience. But somewhere along the way, it turned into something much darker than anyone expected. At the heart of the show has always been the bond, and sometimes the rivalry, between Amy and Tammy. While their story was always painted as one of support and sisterhood, whispers have started to spread that the bond may not be as pure as fans once believed. In fact, some believe that Amy never truly wanted Tammy to succeed, and that jealousy, resentment, and insecurity may have been hiding under the surface of their relationship all along. It's a shocking accusation, one that flips the story fans thought they knew upside down. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the very beginning. Tammy Slaton's health was always the tragic focal point of 1000 Delby Sisters. Her weight skyrocketed to over 700 pounds. And with it came a cascade of life-threatening problems: oxygen dependency, immobility, and the terrifying reality that her body was shutting down. Doctors gave her grim warnings. Family members begged her to change. And fans online held their breath with every new update, terrified that at any moment, Tammy's story could end in tragedy. By late 2021, that nightmare nearly came true. Tammy was rushed to the hospital, placed on a ventilator, and put into a medically induced coma. Headlines screamed that this might be the end. Fans grieved in real time, posting desperate prayers and farewell messages. Many assumed she wouldn't make it through the night. TLC cameras documented the terrifying reality of a woman on the brink of death, her life, her future, and her family all hanging in the balance. And then, against all odds, Tammy survived. She woke up and she made a decision that would forever alter the course of her life. She agreed to enter a rehab facility, confronting her food addiction head-on and vowing to fight for her health. What followed was nothing short of a miracle. In rehab, Tammy shed an astounding amount of weight. Doctors and fans alike were stunned by her dedication. Slowly but surely, the woman who had been written off as a lost cause began to change. She weaned herself off oxygen. She started walking again. And eventually, she qualified for the bariatric surgery that would save her life. The transformation was breathtaking. The Tammy who had once lashed out at her family, who had been confined to her bed, who had nearly lost her life, was now smiling, laughing, and talking about dreams she had once thought were impossible. She wanted to drive again, to travel, to live freely without machines holding her back. On social media, we're so proud of you. Tammy became a rallying cry. TikTok edits, Instagram fan pages, and Twitter threads all celebrated her progress. Even critics who had once mocked her began to admit they were moved by her fight. For the first time, Tammy was no longer the villain of her own story. She was the hero. Fans called it the redemption arc of a lifetime. But Tammy's rise created a problem that few expected. It shifted the spotlight away from Amy. For years, Amy had been positioned as the fan favorite, the relatable sister who seemed grounded, the one who had married, had kids, and held her family together while Tammy spiraled. Amy had been painted as the good sister, the responsible one, the caretaker who sacrificed for her sibling. Fans pitied her for carrying the burden of Tammy's meltdowns, her health scares, and her refusal to change. But when Tammy finally turned her life around, the dynamic flipped. Suddenly, Amy wasn't the star anymore. As Tammy's success soared, fans began to notice subtle changes in Amy's behavior. In interviews, instead of celebrating her sister's victories, Amy often shifted the focus back to herself, emphasizing her own struggles as a mother or her frustrations with life. In scenes where Tammy shared her achievements, walking unassisted, hitting weight milestones, or qualifying for surgery, Amy sometimes appeared distant, aloof, or quick to change the subject at first. These moments seemed like nothing more than stress. After all, Amy was juggling the pressures of raising two young children, a crumbling marriage, and the constant intrusion of reality TV cameras. But as time went on, fans began to piece together a more unsettling picture. The whispers of jealousy started online. Reddit threads, TikTok videos, and YouTube commentaries asked the same questions. Was Amy secretly unhappy about Tammy's success? Did she prefer being the center of attention while Tammy struggled? Was the supportive sister image nothing more than a role for the cameras? When Tammy announced that she had lost enough weight to qualify for surgery, Amy's reaction wasn't the cheering, tearful celebration fans expected. Instead, it came off as lukewarm, almost irritated. When Tammy walked without her walker for the first time, Amy offered little encouragement, seeming more preoccupied than proud. These moments, small on their own, began to add up in the minds of viewers. Meanwhile, Amy's own life was unraveling. While Tammy's star rose higher than ever, Amy faced a messy divorce, custody battles, and mounting criticism of her parenting. Fans who once sympathized with her began to scrutinize her choices. Pictures of her messy home went viral. Parenting decisions were criticized. Headlines painted her as unstable, irresponsible, and overwhelmed. And in contrast to Tammy's glowing redemption, Amy's life looked like it was crumbling. The once adored sister was now the one under attack. Social media turned quickly. Comments flooded Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, accusing Amy of being jealous, unsupportive, even sabotaging. One viral post read, "She doesn't want Tammy to succeed because then she loses her power." Another bluntly said, "Amy was only the favorite because Tammy was a mess." Now that Tammy's thriving, Amy's true colors are showing. Fans compared their journeys side by side. Tammy overcoming impossible odds, glowing with health, traveling, and inspiring millions, while Amy seemed bitter, stuck, and increasingly erratic. By the time Tammy proudly shared glimpses of her new life, going out on the town, laughing with friends, and living with a freedom she never thought possible, Amy's reputation was at its lowest point. What was once a story of sisterly love had transformed into whispers of betrayal and jealousy. The narrative had shifted completely. The good sister wasn't so good anymore, and the bad sister had become the survivor, the inspiration, the star. The accusations against Amy only grew louder. Fans dissected her interviews, pointing out moments where her smiles didn't seem genuine. Her tone seemed dismissive, or her words seemed to minimize Tammy's achievements. They argued that Amy's role as caretaker had given her a kind of power that evaporated the moment Tammy no longer needed her. Without Tammy's struggles, Amy was just another reality star with problems of her own. Problems that suddenly didn't look as sympathetic compared to her sister's triumph. It's a heartbreaking twist that no one saw coming. The sister who was once portrayed as long-suffering and selfless is now accused of secretly preferring Tammy's pain because it kept her in the spotlight. And the sister who was once ridiculed as lazy, volatile, and doomed is now the one fans rally behind. The one they believe in, the one they celebrate. As the show continues, the tension between perception and reality only grows. Was Amy truly jealous? Did she really not want Tammy to succeed? Or is this just another case of reality TV editing, twisting small moments into a bigger narrative for the sake of drama? The truth may never be clear. What is clear, however, is that the fans have made up their minds. In their eyes, Amy has fallen from grace. And Tammy, against every odds stacked against her, has risen as the unexpected hero of 1,000 Delby sisters. And that is where the darkest chapter of this story begins, with the bombshell allegation that Amy Slaton may have never wanted her sister to succeed, that she secretly preferred Tammy sick, dependent, and struggling, because it meant she could remain the favored sister. A shocking accusation, but one that has forever changed the way fans see the Slaton family, and one that continues to haunt the legacy of a show built on heartbreak, survival, and the fragile bond between two sisters.
Prison, and by God, it shall change your mind. Do they allow you to get married in prison? think so.
The world of 1000 Delby Sisters has always been built on raw emotion. Shocking revelations and the deeply personal struggles of two women who were never supposed to become reality TV icons. From the very first time Tammy and Amy Slaton appeared on TLC, audiences were captivated by their bond, their battles, and their unfiltered honesty. Two sisters fighting poverty, obesity, and deeply rooted personal demons, while also fighting each other in ways that were heartbreaking but impossible to ignore. The show promised an intimate look into a family weighed down not just by size but by circumstance. Yet as the seasons unfolded, what was supposed to be a tale of survival and sisterhood twisted into something far darker than anyone could have predicted. At the center of this darkness lies an accusation that has shaken the fandom: that Amy Slaton, long painted as the loyal, caring sister, may have secretly never wanted Tammy to succeed. A shocking suggestion, one that turns the entire narrative upside down. To understand how fans arrived at this disturbing theory, we must revisit the sisters' journey, Tammy's near-death experience, her miraculous transformation, and the subtle signs that Amy's support might not have been as genuine as it seemed. Tammy's story was always the show's most tragic focal point. By the time filming began, her weight had soared past 700 pounds. Her health crumbled beneath the strain. She was immobile, tethered to an oxygen tank, and living under the constant threat of her body simply giving out. Doctors issued grim warnings. Family members pleaded for change. Fans online braced themselves for bad news at every turn. Tammy was a walking time bomb, her life measured in pounds and oxygen levels. Her days overshadowed by the looming fear of an early death. In late 2021, that fear nearly came true. Tammy was rushed to the hospital, placed on a ventilator, and put into a medically induced coma. Headlines blared that this was the end. Social media exploded with grief, with fans posting desperate prayers and farewell messages in real time. For many, it felt like watching someone die on camera. TLC's cameras captured the harrowing reality: a woman teetering between life and death, her future slipping away. Fans cried, family members mourned, and many assumed she would never open her eyes again. But Tammy did. Against every odd stacked against her, Tammy survived. When she finally woke up, she made a decision that would change her story forever. She chose to go to rehab. For the first time, she faced her food addiction head-on. For the first time, she truly fought back. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. In rehab, Tammy shed an astounding amount of weight. Doctors who once doubted her commitment were stunned by her dedication. Slowly but surely, Tammy transformed. She weaned herself off oxygen, regained her ability to walk, and, in time, qualified for the bariatric surgery that would save her life. The woman who had once lashed out at her family, who had been confined to a wheelchair and ridiculed by critics, was now smiling, laughing, and daring to dream of things she had once thought it's impossible. Driving, traveling, living without the shadow of death looming over her every moment. The world took notice. Social media lit up with support. "We're so proud of you, Tammy," became a rallying cry. TikTok edits, Instagram tributes, and Twitter threads celebrated her victories. Even those who had once mocked her weight began to admit they were moved by her determination. For the first time, Tammy was no longer cast as the villain of her own story. She was the hero. Her redemption arc was something fans had been begging for since day one. But as Tammy rose, something else began to shift. Something few expected. Amy, the sister who had always been painted as the good one, suddenly seemed out of step. For years, Amy had been the fan favorite. She was the relatable one, the caregiver. The mother who somehow managed to balance her life while carrying the crushing weight of her sister's needs. Fans adored her. They pitied her. She was the emotional anchor of the show. But when Tammy began thriving, the spotlight shifted. And with it, Amy's reactions came under new scrutiny. At first, the differences seemed small. In interviews, instead of celebrating Tammy's victories, Amy often turned the conversation back to her own struggles: motherhood, exhaustion, frustration with filming. On screen, Moments that should have been joyful sometimes felt flat. When Tammy walked for the first time without her walker, fans expected tears of pride, cheering, maybe even a hug. Instead, Amy's response seemed distant, distracted. When Tammy announced she was finally eligible for surgery, Amy didn't radiate joy. She seemed almost annoyed. These moments were subtle, almost imperceptible. But fans noticed, and once they noticed, they couldn't unsee it. Reddit threads began dissecting Amy's behavior. TikTok creators made side-by-side videos comparing Tammy's achievements with Amy's muted responses. YouTube commentators replayed key clips, analyzing Amy's tone, her body language, even her facial expressions. The internet had turned into a digital detective agency, determined to uncover Amy's true feelings. Fans highlighted 3 things in particular. First, forced reactions. Time and again, Amy's celebrations felt hollow. A quick clap, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, followed immediately by a subject change back to herself. Second, micro-expressions. Sharp-eyed viewers pointed out fleeting grimaces, eye rolls, or crossed arms whenever Tammy was praised. To them, these weren't accidents. They were cracks in the mask. And third, silence. While Tammy's progress lit up the internet, Amy's social media pages remained oddly quiet. She rarely acknowledged her sister's accomplishments publicly. To fans, this wasn't oversight. It was intentional. The theories spread quickly. Some argued that Amy's very identity on the show depended on Tammy being the struggling one. Without Tammy's chaos, Amy's role as the responsible caregiver vanished. Others went further, suggesting Amy deliberately minimized Tammy's victories to protect her own relevance on screen. Fans called it the ultimate reality TV survival tactic. Keep the spotlight on yourself by dimming someone else's shine. Behind the scenes, rumors only fueled the fire. Anonymous sources whispered that Amy had expressed frustration over Tammy's rapid progress, that she didn't like how much attention her sister was suddenly getting. Others claimed TLC deliberately edited footage to soften Amy's reactions, cutting harsher comments or less flattering behavior. But fans believed they had already seen enough. In their eyes, the evidence was plain. And then came the backlash. Social media turned on Amy in a way no one expected. TikTok compilations of her alleged eye rolls and cold responses went viral. Twitter threads accused her of being jealous. Facebook comments painted her as selfish. One viral post read, "Amy doesn't cheer because she's mad Tammy is winning now." Another bluntly declared, "She only looked good when Tammy was a mess. Now Tammy's thriving and Amy's true colors are showing." The once beloved sister was now the villain. Meanwhile, Tammy, long branded the toxic one, was suddenly embraced as the hero. The roles had reversed completely. Amy's personal struggles only deepened the contrast. As Tammy glowed with confidence and freedom, Amy was caught in a messy divorce. She faced harsh criticism over her parenting. Paparazzi photos of her cluttered home went viral, sparking debates about her ability to raise her kids. Headlines painted her as overwhelmed and unstable. Fans who had once defended her now questioned everything, even her relationship with Tammy. The accusations escalated. Did Amy secretly prefer Tammy sick, dependent, and confined because it kept her in the spotlight? Was her identity as the responsible one entirely built on her sister's suffering? Had her support all along been more performance than sincerity? Some fans went even further, alleging that Amy might have actively undermined Tammy with dismissive comments. Lack of encouragement and subtle put-downs designed to chip away at her sister's confidence. It was the greatest charge of all, that Tammy Slaton, the so-called angel sister, didn't actually want Tammy to succeed. That she thrived on her sister's misery because it gave her a role to play. And that Tammy's recovery wasn't just a triumph of health and willpower, it was a threat to Amy's place in the story. By the time Tammy proudly flaunted her new life walking unassisted, traveling, laughing freely, the fan narrative had flipped completely. The struggling, volatile sister had become the show's beating heart, its miracle, its redemption arc. And Amy, once adored for her patience and sacrifice, was now cast as jealous, insecure, and exposed. Of course, the truth may be more complicated. Reality TV thrives on editing, on framing, on creating villains and heroes where the lines in real life are far blurrier. Perhaps Amy was simply exhausted, overwhelmed by her own struggles, her reactions flattened by stress rather than jealousy. Perhaps the cameras caught moments that looked worse than they were. Perhaps the fandom, always hungry for drama, twisted small cracks into fatal flaws. But perception is everything in the world of reality television. And the perception now is that Amy's halo has slipped, while Tammy's star shines brighter than ever. The whispers of betrayal and jealousy have grown too loud to ignore. Whether fair or not, fans believe the story has been rewritten. Amy didn't want Tammy to succeed. She preferred her dependent, broken, and failing. And that belief has forever changed the way viewers see the sisters and the show that turned them into stars.
Crazy ass haunted place. But what Amy don't realize is,
from the very beginning, 1000 Delby Sisters was sold to the world as the story of two sisters who loved each other deeply, who would do anything to support one another, and who stood side by side against the biggest obstacle of their lives, their health. On screen, Tammy Slaton always appeared as the supportive, nurturing caregiver, the one who held her sister Tammy's hand through hospital visits, who cheered during Y-ins, and who wiped away tears when Tammy's frustration reached a breaking point. For years, audiences praised Amy as the good sister, the anchor of the family, the one who balanced chaos with compassion. But now, as Tammy has achieved the kind of transformation few believed was possible, fans are beginning to question everything. What if Amy's encouragement wasn't as genuine as it seemed? What if, behind those supportive smiles and rehearsed claps, there was something much darker, lurking, resentment, envy, even sabotage? Tammy's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. She went from being oxygen-dependent, immobile, trapped in her own home and hospitalized at death's door, to regaining her independence, standing tall, walking on her own, and finally qualifying for life-saving surgery. Each milestone was historic, not just for Tammy, but for the entire fan base who had watched her struggle for years. When the surgery was successful and the weight began to fall off, social media erupted in celebration. Clips of Tammy walking independently, smiling confidently, and laughing without her oxygen tubes went viral. For many, this was the ultimate reality TV redemption arc. A woman the world had written off as hopeless, proving everyone wrong. But while Tammy soared, Amy's behavior began to shift, at least according to the most dedicated fans who dissected every frame. On camera, Amy clapped. She smiled. She said the right words. Yet her reactions often seemed tepid, distracted, or even forced. Instead of basking in her sister's victory, she sometimes pivoted to her own struggles, her failing marriage, her divorce from Michael Halterman, the exhaustion of being a mother of two. It was as if Tammy's triumphs threatened to push Amy into the background, and Amy's discomfort bled through the cracks in her carefully crafted persona. Fans took notice. They began clipping Amy's reactions, slowing down footage, analyzing her body language. Micro-expressions, those tiny flashes of annoyance too quick for casual viewers to notice, became evidence. An eye roll when Tammy received praise. Arms crossed during a win victory. A grimace disguised as a smile. These weren't just coincidences, fans argued. They were glimpses of Amy's true feelings, the mask slipping in real time. Social media turned into a detective agency, with Reddit threads and TikTok breakdowns going viral. One viral TikTok showed Tammy walking independently for the first time while Amy clapped for barely 2 seconds before quickly steering the conversation back to her own difficulties. Another Reddit post highlighted side-by-side screenshots of Amy's smiles compared to her subtle frowns whenever Tammy's name trended online. Soon, a theory took hold. Amy wasn't happy for Tammy at all. She was jealous. And more than that, her entire on-screen identity, the caring, reliable sister, depended on Tammy remaining weak, dependent, and struggling. If Tammy became strong, independent, and celebrated, then Amy's role was reduced to nothing. Her spotlight dimmed. Her character arc evaporated. Fans began whispering the unthinkable. Was Amy subconsciously or even deliberately sabotaging Tammy's success to protect her own place in the narrative? The idea sounds shocking, but once it entered the conversation, fans couldn't stop finding more evidence. TikTok creators racked up millions of views by posting compilations of Amy's distracted responses and half-hearted claps. Reddit threads exploded with heated debates, some calling Amy the real villain of the show. One fan wrote, "Amy doesn't cheer because she's mad Tammy is winning now." Another speculated, maybe Amy wanted Tammy to remain trapped so she could shine. We all thought she was the angel sister, but what if she was just acting? Behind the scenes, whispers only added fuel. Anonymous production insiders hinted that TLC often edited footage to soften Amy's reactions. Allegedly, entire sequences where Amy appeared visibly annoyed by Tammy's success never made it to air. Some even claimed Amy had objected to scenes that placed too much emphasis on Tammy's milestones. Demanding more focus on her own storyline, her divorce, her children, her identity as a mother. If true, it painted a disturbing picture. Not just jealousy, but calculated self-preservation. The ultimate reality TV survival tactic. As this theory gained traction, the fan base began to fracture. Amy, once universally adored as the supportive sister, now faced waves of criticism online. TikTok videos exposing her fake claps went viral. Twitter threads accused her of sabotage. Even longtime fans who once defended her began questioning whether they had been deceived all along. Some argued that Amy's behavior was simply human, a natural reaction to being overshadowed by a sibling's sudden success. Others insisted it was malicious, intentional, a manipulative effort to keep Tammy dependent so Amy could remain relevant. The storyline had flipped. Tammy, once ridiculed as volatile and self-destructive, was now the hero, a survivor, a warrior. A woman who had beaten the odds. And Amy, once praised as her savior, was under suspicion. Her motives dissected and her every move reinterpreted through the lens of jealousy. The greatest accusation, however, went even further. Did Amy actually want Tammy to fail? Was her support just a facade while she quietly undermined her sister's confidence, offering faint praise, subtle dismissals, and little social media recognition, all to ensure Tammy never truly outshone her? This darker narrative shook the 1002 LB Sisters community. Fans who had once cried alongside Amy now accused her of betrayal. Online discussions became battlegrounds, with one side defending Amy as a flawed but loving sister, and the other branding her as a manipulative figure who thrived on Tammy's dependency. The exposure felt like a scandal TLC itself wanted to bury. A hidden layer of reality that editing tricks and carefully constructed storylines had tried to conceal. And yet, while Amy faced backlash, Tammy's struggles were far from over. Even after her surgery and astonishing weight loss, Tammy was still navigating grief, trauma, and mental health battles. The loss of her husband, Caleb Willingham, left her devastated. Fans watched as she tried to balance her physical recovery with overwhelming emotional pain. Often breaking down on camera, her vulnerability raw and unfiltered. Despite her progress, Tammy admitted to feeling lost, struggling to stay motivated, and fearing relapse. These moments reminded viewers that Tammy's journey wasn't just about numbers on a scale. It was about survival, resilience, and learning to live after years of despair. Her transformation wasn't linear. It was messy, painful, and filled with setbacks. And yet, Tammy continued pushing forward, determined not to let grief undo her progress. Her ability to rise through tragedy only made her redemption arc more powerful, more inspiring. In contrast, Amy's personal life seemed to spiral further. Her divorce left her single and overwhelmed as a mother of two. Her on-screen identity became less about support and more about her own struggles, legal battles, custody questions, and financial stress. While Tammy was ascending, Amy appeared stuck, her hardships magnified against her sister's newfound strength. This imbalance only fueled the jealousy narrative, as fans contrasted Tammy's triumphs with Amy's failures. And then came the most startling twist of all, the belief that TLC itself may have been complicit in hiding the truth. Fans theorized that the network deliberately edited Tammy's jealousy out of episodes to preserve her reputation and keep the supportive sister narrative intact, by softening her reactions and focusing on her caregiving role. TLC allegedly protected Amy's image while presenting a family-friendly version of events. But to eagle-eyed viewers, the cracks were obvious. Editing could conceal a lot, but not everything. The slips, the eye rolls, the silence online, the forced claps told another story. For many fans, this revelation was the final straw. The show they thought was about family, love, and redemption was suddenly about rivalry, manipulation, and hidden agendas. What should have been a story of triumph now carried the shadow of betrayal. Tammy's victory came not just against her own health struggles, but against the possibility that her own sister might not have wanted her to succeed. And so the question lingers: was Amy Slaton truly the supportive, selfless sister the world believed her to be? Or was she quietly threatened by Tammy's success, jealous of the spotlight, and resentful of the role reversal that left her no longer the star of the story? Fans may never know the full truth. But one thing is certain: the Slaton sisters' dynamic will never be seen the same way again. What began as a tale of two sisters fighting for survival has evolved into something far more complicated. A story of envy, power, and the shocking possibility that one sister's triumph revealed the other's hidden darkness.